On a new phone. Tell me about that and what you're looking to quote unquote correct here.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Maria, more and more we're using technology as a company, right, to correct the problems. Obviously, Truth Social was to correct freedom of speech, right? I mean, he lost his throughout the political process. Obviously, crypto, and we got the biggest projects in crypto, was to correct another problem, which is the fact that they were debanking all conservatives. I was the most canceled person probably in the history of the country. And now we're doing Trump Mobile, and Trump Mobile is going to revolutionize cell phones, mobile calling. We're going to do it better. We're going to do it safer. We're going to have more functionality, more features. And the coolest thing about all these ventures is we're doing it right here in the United States. You're not calling up call centers in Bangladesh. You're not, you're doing it right out of St. Louis, Missouri. And you're going to have phones that are made right here in the United States of America. And it's going to be cheaper, $47 a month. You're going to have more international dialing for free, hundreds of countries, international dialing for free. It is the biggest bang for the buck, and we're really excited to get into the space. I mean, when you take kind of technology, obviously real estate's always been our bread and butter, but when you take the technology world between the social platforms, the actual hard devices, which is really what Trump Mobile is, and then kind of the true retail banking, CeFi, DeFi, worlds of cryptocurrency, which is no question where the world is going. I really believe we're going to have one of the great kind of tech platforms as part of the Trump organization of any company in the world, and I couldn't be more proud of Trump Mobile.
So what's the competition then, Eric? Trump Mobile competes with any other regular phone out there? Who is going to be handling the technicals and the backdrop of that phone, the provider?
Yeah. We've got one of the greatest teams that you can ever imagine. People who have built all the biggest companies in the mobile space. And I can tell you, I was just on stage with them a couple seconds ago when we announced this. They're really coming for everybody. I think we're going to do something that's really, really amazing. And I think people forget about it. I think people often take it for granted. They've had the same carrier for 100 years. That carrier hasn't done anything new or innovative or different. Their plans are probably increasing at 10% a year because people aren't paying attention to their bill. I think we're going to really shake up the space in a very big way, both in terms of the actual hardware of the phones and then obviously eSIM cards. And then just what you get for a plan per month. And we're actually starting it. I think it's very kind of symbiotic of today's date, but we're starting at $47 a month, Maria. And so we're really excited. I think we're going to beat the pants off of everybody, and we're really excited about this venture.
You've also got.
Well. What's going on, everybody? It's Professor Zeus, and I'm back with another video. Yo, if this is your first time at the channel, just know I greatly appreciate you for stopping by. Go ahead and hit subscribe. We are on our way to 2,000 subscribers, and we are taking it the humble route. Guys, you guys saw it here first. Eric Trump. Speaking about Trump Mobile, that is the topic of today's video. And I gotta say, this is pretty interesting. It's interesting, but I guess it's not outside of the realm of what's possible today in politics. I mean, when you have the ability to buy citizenship for $5 million, it's possible that you can start your own cell phone line. That's the amazing thing about America. The possibilities are endless. So I just want to go over this article. Trump's sons announced wireless service called Trump Mobile. Trump organization on Monday announced the creation of a new wireless service called Trump Mobile that it hopes will rival U.S. telecom providers like AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. A big part of what we've done has been focused on technology for people who have been underserved, whether that's been in crypto or anything else, but none of the places where we felt there was a lackluster performance was the mobile industry, Donald Trump Jr. said early Monday at an event at Trump Tower in New York. So this is pretty interesting. Trump organization, obviously spearheaded by President Donald Trump's sons, Eric and Don Jr. So they're essentially offering a $47.45 a month, aka the 47 plan, with unlimited talk, text, and data, plus extras like roadside assistance, telehealth benefits, And they're also selling the T1 smartphone with the ambition to release it in September, and it's going to have a gold-colored case with the American flag, similar to, the gold card. Everything is gold. I guess President Trump's whole aesthetic, gold, shiny, different things like that. And as you heard Eric Trump speaking, it's more so marketed as a Made in America brand, really focusing on economic nationalism, with these whole things with tariffs and different things like that. I've covered it plenty of times, how production isn't necessarily our strong suit, but, the current administration really wants us to get back to that. So this, I guess, is another form of trying to push for that same messaging, with, Trump's tariffs. A lot of the imports have just been raised by, double digits. And from what I'm understanding is that this cell phone is mostly like a licensing deal. So the Trump organization isn't necessarily building the phones or running networks. They're just partnering with an unnamed company to, be able to put the Trump brand on the products, right? So, I'm not going to be biased or anything like that. Obviously, capitalism works. Some may argue it does, some may argue it doesn't. But for the point of this video and Trump Mobile, let's try to be as nuanced as possible, right? So why could Trump Mobile be a game changer, right? They obviously have the patriotic appeal, right? Eric, he was saying this is leaning more toward that, buy America, with tariffs making imported phones like the iPhone, it's going to get pricier. Trump Mobile, the US made essentially pitch could resonate with a lot of conservative consumers, right? So a lot of people on Twitter are saying it's a brilliant fusion of business and patriotism. It's a niche market. Trump Mobile is targeting the conservative Republican base, and that's a loyal demographic, with about 95% of Americans owning a cell phone. Being able to capture even a slice of that market could be extremely profitable, right? So think of it like Tesla. Think of it like the Tesla for people who are really super MAGA, right? Brand loyalty over specifications, right? And then you have somewhat of a tariff advantage, right? Trump's 25% tariffs on foreign-made phones obviously really affected Apple and Samsung hard, right? As 90% of iPhones are made in China. So Trump Mobile's domestic focus could dodge those costs, keeping prices fairly stable, right? Now, again, we want to be as unbiased as possible, but let's try to talk about some of the possible cons, right? Trump Mobile is obviously new. There's so many different players in this space, and it's going to be an unproven network per se, right? Because, as Eric was talking, he didn't necessarily talk about the network provider that Trump Mobile would be able to be on, right? So is it piggybacking on AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile? And without a robust network, a lot of users could face, spotty coverage, especially in rural areas where a lot of conservative MAGA people do reside. So, big telecoms infrastructure is obviously really hard to follow, right? It's a tough act to follow, right? And there's a sense of limited scale because the telecom market, again, is dominated by those three giants, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, right? So this whole licensing model, it lacks the research and design muscle to compete in this market, right? So it is a niche, it is interesting, but we'll have to see how well they're going to be able to scale, right? And then also by targeting conservatives primarily, Trump Mobile could essentially alienate half the market. In a lot of my previous videos, I do talk about capitalism. I do talk about the pros of it. And I do talk about the sense that, when you create a product for a specific demographic, you alienate half the market. Now, it doesn't matter what identity you're trying to provide for your product. if someone likes a product, if you're offering a good product or a good service, people are gonna be willing to buy it, right? But if you kind of focus on one demographic, you leave so much money off the table, right? So that's something that they also have to be wary of, right? So, can Trump Mobile take on the iPhone, Samsung, or Google Pixel? I mean, it's a long shot. I mean, the iPhone essentially dominates 50% of the US market share because it has a seamless ecosystem and people love Apple, right? You got iMessage, you got Apple Watch, you got CarPlay, you got Maps, you got so many different things within the Apple ecosystem that makes it so seamless. It's like, do I really want to upend that for something that's new that hasn't been proven, right? And a lot of people have brand loyalty, right? Especially like even with Samsung Galaxy phones. My older brother has a Samsung Galaxy. You know, the ones that like flip open and stuff like, so it look like it's like flat, but then you open it up and it's like a small tablet. Yeah, my brother got one of those, right? Those types of phones, they're all made in like India, Vietnam, and essentially it's top tier hardware, right? Even Google's Pixel is carving a niche with like AI driven features like, the audio magic eraser, right? And Trump's mobile T1 model, it starts at $499, right? So that might appeal to a lot of people who are buying on a budget, but it lacks the ecosystem or innovation to pull users from Apple or Samsung. It's going to be really hard, especially because, I mean, the price looks good, right? Because for an Apple phone, Apple iPhone or a Samsung phone, like these are $8,000-9,000 phones, right? But you have the Trump T1 phone, it's $500. But are you willing to get a reasonably priced phone and miss out on the seamlessness of how you go about your day with your phone, right? And obviously, again, tariffs will probably raise iPhone prices, but a lot of analysts are saying Apple will just try to absorb a lot of the costs or try to shift production to India, not the United States moving iPhone production stateside would essentially, I've talked about this before, Apple making iPhones in America, you're looking at an iPhone that's costing like $3,500, right, per phone, right? And it's going to take 5-10 years for them to really bring production over here and make it more feasible, So these are things that people have to be paying attention to, right? And as far as the bigger picture, right, Trump Mobile, I think it's less about revolutionizing the telecom industry and more about branding. President Trump, he's really huge on branding. And, we've seen so many different items that the Trump organization has, the MAGA hats, the watches, the sneakers, the Bibles, the gold card. It's really about licensing deals that cash in on, the Trump name with a lot of low risk, right? Obviously, it's a smart business move because you're able to make millions. But I don't know if we can see like an overnight toppling of like Verizon or Apple, right? And again, for a lot of the consumers, it's a really niche option. So if you're really pro, super, MAGA, Trump, all these types of things, yeah, and you want to just like own the liberals and all that type of stuff with your cell phone, this is probably going to be for you. But for a lot of Americans, network reliability, a lot of the phone specs and the ecosystem lock-in will probably outweigh patriotism. And I know that might sound harsh, but that's kind of the reality, right? Because the telecom market it's too competitive, right? And Trump Mobile, it's just a little bit late to the game. So, will Trump Mobile disrupt telecom or fizzle out? It's slated to come out in September, so we'll see. Can the T1 challenge the iPhone? I don't know. The iPhone, they do come in rose gold. It's not like gold plated, but a lot of these different types of things are things that people are going to be thinking about. But drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious what you think about the Trump organization now coming out with their own cell phones. But if you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers, and ring that bell notification so you always get notified when I drop a new video. I'm going to be trying to drop as more videos as much as I can now that I'm 100% at better health, and I have a new setup now. I have my camera now, so my videos are a little bit more quality oriented. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and never forget, it's you and I verse. Information, application, execution. Until next time, peace.